Ask that again. What's up?
How many steals of home were there this year?
There were. Good question. The last steal of home, like the last straight steal of home, I remember, was in '09 when Jacoby Ellsbury did. I'm sure there's been a couple since then, but I honestly don't remember.
I feel like there was one where a guy got out sometime this year, but otherwise I don't know.
If you say so. I mean, I'm sure there have been times where guys attempted it. It probably just didn't work out too well. I mean, how often does it work?
Well, that's a good question, but how often do they try it is another thing.
You never hear about when it fails.
Yeah.
But you never even see...
Oh.
I've never seen an attempted steal of home, to be honest, live.
July 30th, an Astro stole home. What was his name?
Jose Altuve?
No, it wasn't Altuve. They were...
Justin Maxwell?
Says,
Wait, July what?
July 30th.
Okay, then Maxwell was traded on the 29th to the Royals, so it wasn't him.
Yeah, so it was... It says his last name, Villar.
Oh, Jonathan Villar.
Yeah, Jonathan Villar, rookie shortstop. Yep.
Wow.
Oh, he straight stole against Wei-Yin Chen of the Orioles.
Oh, the thing about the Astros is that they're not good, but they're athletic. All those guys are really thin and athletic.
Yeah, they are. They have they were the highest profitability rate professional team of any sport in the entire world this year.
I saw that.
The past 30 years or something crazy. They had a 230% profit margin or something like that. They spent, what was it, $27 million on all their players, which was the 25th highest salary, including single players, not including teams.
Yeah.
And then they made $65 million or something crazy like that. It's well, if you're gonna make money, that's how you do it.
Well, the thing is, it's like Jeff Loria, the Marlins owner, that everyone hates because I think I mentioned this earlier, but the people that would be listening wouldn't be there to hear this. That they're raising their payroll to a whopping $30 million, which in baseball is nothing when the average team salary is $100 million, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna raise it to a modest $30 million this year.
After they signed all those incredibly expensive players that year and then bailed on them.
Yeah, Placido Polanco is the highest paid player right now.
How much is he making?
$1.2 million or something like that.
Of course.
I could look those salary stuff up, but I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, baseball has sort of a salary cap. I think we kind of dissected this in the last one that didn't happen.
Yeah, I remember that. It's fine based. You have to pay a fine based on how high over the cap you go.
Right, which is similar to what they do in the draft also. But they need a hard cap. You can't absolutely under any circumstances spend this much. And they should also, I guess this is kind of like baseball communism, balance the salaries of all the teams. So make sure that every team has a certain salary.
I like that. See, the problem with that is, then you have teams like the Astros who are losing money. What I think it is, I think you're on the right track there. I think it should be that it's you don't have to because then you'd have to either the MLB or other teams would have to pay the salaries of players on other teams, right? So you'd get the Yankees paying half of the Astros salary, or the MLB paying half of the Astros salary. I think it should be that the Astros, the MLB has rights to look at the Astros funding and say, okay, you guys have to spend at least this much of your funding.
Yeah.
Then you can't get, profiteering. If the Astros don't add on this offseason and they just leave their team be and they're okay, well, we're just going to spend $28 million this year and we're going to make $70 million again and we're going to be incredibly profitable. We're not going to put any money back in. Then they can say, no, you guys have to spend this money now, because otherwise they're just pulling money out of the system.
Yeah, no, for sure. Baseball is such a big financial thing because there's teams that spend a lot of money, teams that spend a little money. It's definitely the biggest gap in terms of ability level from worst team to best team in any sport. I mean, yeah, there are teams like the Bobcats in basketball last year, who were just plain awful. But
Oh yeah, they're terrible.
But I mean, the Astros I think were worse in comparison to the average of the league than the Bobcats were. I think. And did you know the Astros were on a 13-game losing streak to end the season or something like that?
Oh god, that's bad.
Yeah,
that's actually a good point though. Who's the worst team by like not just by sport, but like in all sports combined in like professional American sports? Because if you look at like professional soccer over in Europe, I mean there are so many teams it's hard to tell. But you can take like the Jaguars and the Bobcats and the Astros, and you look at them. And the thing that I find difficult is not like just overall talent compared to the leagues, but the skew of winning percentage, right? Like the Bobcats won like what was it, 11% of their games.
yeah.
But the numbers of games played in professional basketball are like kind of the perfect storm for bad teams to lose a lot of games, right? Whereas football, it's like obvious if you have a bad team, it's going to be tough for them to win a game because each game in the NFL is taken so seriously, right? Whereas you take
Right, it's like one game is like so much more than like one game of baseball is like, oh well, there's 162 of those.
right,
One game of
the
football.
Astros have so many more wins as a win percentage, right? They finished with like a 350 win percentage or something.
Mhm. So I was just I decided to search the worst team ever in well, it's kind of an objective or objective or subjective. I always get those two mixed up. The one opinionated list of the worst teams, but it had the Cleveland Spiders, which
What team is that? What not what team? What sport?
that would be baseball from 1889, I think. Hold on.
Of course.
The 1899 Cleveland Spiders. Okay, so the Cleveland Spiders. It was their 13th season in the majors, and they were so bad. It said, okay, so this is a Wikipedia article here. With a decimated roster, it was apparent almost from the start the Spiders would make a wretched showing. In their first game, they were beaten by the Perfectos 10-1, whoever they were. The next day, the front page headline on the Plain Dealer read, "The farce has begun," and the club finished 20-134.
20-134 in baseball. That's atrocious.
Their best winning streak was 3 games.
3 games. That's actually kind of impressive for only winning 20.
And they lost 40 of their last 41 games.
Well, that was back when there was like it was like employ the coal miner's son because he'll play really hard to put food on the table for his teams, and that was probably the managers who were like, well, let's just pay our players like $3 a game or whatever, and they get to play baseball, so they'll take it. And then they got like no talent whatsoever, and they were terrible and didn't care because they at least sold tickets and made money.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? Their catcher, one of their catchers' names was Jack Clements. You know who that reminds me of?
Yeah.
Jeff Clement.
Yeah, Jeff Clement. Yeah.
the Mariner prospect who really didn't work out at all.
Maybe he was on the Back to the Future car and somehow got to the future and decided that he didn't want to be on the worst team ever and just one of the worst teams of our time.
Right, yeah, he decided, I mean, the Mariners are slightly better than the Spiders.
Right.
I would hate to be like that team. Okay, what? So they had a guy with an average of 313 and a guy with an average of 342. One of the Spiders hitters had an average of 342.
340. They must have had terrible pitching.
To be fair, it was only 20 games.
20 games.
And oh my gosh, back then, so 2 home runs was leading the team, but I bet back then that was not a
yeah, there were
uncommon.
no home runs back then.
So okay, so one of their pitchers threw 283 innings with a 4.51 ERA.
That was their best ERA.
That was I guess that's their best overall pitcher. One of their guys threw 153 innings with a 7.24 ERA, and he was His win-loss record was 1-18.
1-18.
Hey, he got the one win, man. That's pretty inspiring.
Yeah, that's cool. On a 20-win baseball team, that's impressive.
I mean, yeah, what happened to the Cleveland Spiders? I'm kind of curious. I know I've also heard, like, the, they got released, they got reduced to minor league status at one point. Because they were so bad, they just got kicked down to the minor leagues.
I've always wondered, do you know how they do it in Premier League over in Europe?
Yeah, European soccer, they, like, if you're a good team, you get to be, like, in the big league, and if you're not, then you get to go down to the smaller leagues, and the champion in the smaller leagues.
The worst team in each division gets dropped to the lower division, and then the best team in each division, the team who wins that division's championship, replaces them. I think that's a really cool system that, they could do with baseball, except that, there's the farm system, so in actuality, an MLB team owns a AAA team, a AA team, and a single A team, so it doesn't quite work very well.
I don't know if you know anything, speaking of minor league affiliates. I really like the minor league affiliates and following them, because I like prospects. I don't know if you know who the High Desert Mavericks are?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I go to a couple of Aqua Sox games every year, and I know a couple of the teams that they play against, but that's about all.
Okay, so the minor league in the Mariners hierarchy goes from bottom to top. There's the rookie league levels, where the kids our age, literally kids our age, 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
The Dominican and Venezuelan summer leagues. And then if they do really well, they get promoted to the Arizona Summer League, which is also
where Theo played.
Right, that's also where high school draft picks go.
Yeah.
Sometimes college draft picks after that go, and if you're good in the Arizona League, go to what we have for us. It would be the Appalachian League, the Pulaski Mariners, which is in Virginia, and then after that they go to the Aqua Sox, and most college players start in the Aqua Sox for the Mariners.
All right.
Then is the Clinton Lumber Kings for Single A. And then the High Desert Mavericks is High A, and then Jackson Generals for Double A, and Tacoma Rainiers for Triple A. But and then the majors. But the High Desert Mavericks is literally the second most hitter-friendly home ballpark in the entire minor leagues, in all the minor leagues, and their rival is the number one, the Lancaster. Shoot, I forget what their name is. The Lancaster something. But High Desert Mavericks have an extremely hitter-friendly ballpark, and it's not because of small dimensions. It's they're in Adelanto, California, which is really windy, and so they get extreme winds that just like a ball goes in the air, it just carries.
That's crazy. That would be so fun to hit at, just to see. Like, the furthest I've ever hit a baseball was like 350 feet. You hit a baseball there like the first time, it goes like 400.
No, yeah. What is normally a normal pop-up in, any other ballpark becomes a home run. And what it does is, some people are on different sides of the argument of this than I am. But I think that the Mariners should get out of there, should move their high affiliate somewhere else. Because for pitchers, what it does is it makes the pitchers look bad. Because any pitcher that pitches there is obviously going to have a bad ERA no matter who they are. I remember Stephen Pryor had a rehab outing there, and he pitched to a worse ERA in like his rehab stint than he did when he came back up with the Mariners, which is saying a lot. So any pitcher is even moderately successful in High A ends up going to Double A, and usually, way more often than not, they struggle there because. Or actually, no, sorry, they succeed there more often, but it's hard to gauge who's good in terms of pitchers when they're in High A. And I'm sure there are pitchers in there that have gotten eaten up in High Desert and who should have been promoted but weren't because of their circumstances. And for hitters, what it does is it gives
them an extremely high BABIP, which makes everything look way better than it is.
Exactly, they're hitters that have crazy averages of like 300 and like 25 to 30 home runs, and they get like hitter of the year, and they go up to Double A and they hit like 180 and have like 10 homers, and then everyone's like, oh, what happened to that prospect? And it's like High Desert happened.
Yeah.
And they are always in headlines for having like the highest scored games. They had one this year against Lancaster actually at home for them though, and it was 30-4, I think.
30-4.
Pretty sure.
Who won that game, though?
We did. Hold on. I'm going to search this.
That's pretty cool. Our high A team beat your high A team 30-4.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because, the High Desert Mavericks are the second most hitter-friendly ballpark, while the Lancaster, I can't remember their name, who they played against, had the first. It's crazy. So apparently the Mavericks, we signed an extension with them this last season that said they would stay with us through 2014, and I was like, okay, here we go again. I think they should get out of there because, there's this one guy, Steven Prasha. I'm probably not pronouncing his name right because I've only written it a million times and never actually said it. And he was a third base prospect there, third base, first base, and he was in High Desert, and then he got moved up to the Generals. Started sucking. They put him back down High Desert. He started hitting again, and then they put him back up to the Generals. He started sucking again. So he's kind of trapped in the middle.
Yeah.
And that happens to a lot of people.
Definitely, that makes a lot of sense.
So
from just normal minor leagues, let's move back up to the powerhouses in the major leagues. Let's talk about the Red Sox beating the Dodgers, or not the Dodgers,
the Tigers.
The Tigers tonight.
Yeah, those.
Who do you think's gonna win?
I actually like the Red Sox. I know a lot of people hate the Red Sox, but I actually really like the Red Sox. I hate the Yankees.
I just like the Red Sox and the Yankees.
I know. I understand where that comes from, but I don't have any dislike against the Tigers.
I like the Tigers. I feel like they're kind of like the America's team that's not like the Yankees who buys everything. There's nothing not to like about the Tigers.
Right. No, yeah, for sure. And they have one of the most stacked lineups in baseball. I still say the Braves had a better one. Like, they had a lineup that was so good they couldn't fit Evan Gattis into their lineup for the first few months, and he was tearing it up, and they had a problem of too many good hitters. I'm like, hey, the Mariners should try trading for Evan Gattis.
Yeah.
But, of course,
that would have been nice.
I was reading an article earlier today about how some guy sent out a tweet saying randomly that he did not think any Mariner player would start, a position player, any Mariner position player would start on either of the ALCS teams if they were on this team, besides Kyle Seager, who would probably start on the Red Sox over Will Middlebrooks. What do you think about that?
Looking at the lineups, I mean...
So here I'm going to help you out here so you don't have to remember these things. The catchers for Mariners, it's Zunino.
I don't think Zunino would start over either Saltalamacchia or
Avila.
Avila.
I think, well...
Maybe Avila.
Maybe Avila.
You consider Avila's bad days.
Yeah, Avila had a really good year in 2010, but Zunino, I don't think Zunino would start just because he's young. But yeah, I think exactly. Next year he maybe would, but this year certainly not. Justin Smoke is easily a no on the first base. He would definitely not make it over those guys. Omar Infante, I didn't realize was this good this year. He is a .318 average. I was going to say Nick Franklin would probably start over him, but...
Again, you got to go with the young thing. I mean, it's just a question of do they really want that, and I don't think teams like that are going to take a risk with young when they don't need to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Nick Franklin, I like Franklin, but I think he's disposable. And I actually kind of want to talk trades that the Mariners should make later, revolving around Nick Franklin. Stephen Drew, Brad Miller. Actually, I'm not sure who I'd take in that case. I mean, veteran-wise, probably Drew, just because he's more experienced.
Yeah, he is a veteran, and I mean, if you compare him to his brother JD, you could get some serious results out of him. Consistency-wise, of just day-to-day basis, he could be good. But Brad Miller has a lot of upside.
Yeah, I didn't realize until just now that they both played on the Red Sox. Because JD used to be on the Red Sox till he retired, and now Stephen Drew is on the Red Sox. But back when JD retired, I think Stephen was on the Diamondbacks or something like that.
I am not sure about that. You'd have to check that.
And Kyle Seager would definitely start with Will Middlebrooks because Will Middlebrooks sucks.
Yeah, he does.
I
don't understand why they still have him.
I remember, oh my gosh. Okay, I remember in 2012 when Middlebrooks was called up and the Red Sox traded Kevin Youkilis. I got into a huge argument with Jason Churchill over Twitter about, he was like, he's a Mariners writer, and he was arguing that they should trade. It was actually right before Kevin Youkilis was traded, but it was when they knew he was going to be traded. And he was arguing that Youkilis should have been traded because of Middlebrooks coming up. And I'm like, well, how do you know Middlebrooks isn't just going to be a flash in the pan? How do you know he's a sure thing? How do you know you can rely on him? How do you know Youkilis wouldn't be better for the future? And I just thought it was a rash move to get rid of your starting third base. Hello, sorry, we just experienced some various audio problems. I think we're good now. Are we good now?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. But we were talking about Middlebrooks and the Red Sox, and I just didn't think it was smart for the Red Sox to trade away Kevin Youkilis to the White Sox, considering they just kind of got Middlebrooks. And Brian, what would you have to say on that matter?
Well, so I basically thought, Youkilis bounced around from the White Sox to the Yankees. He's getting drastically overpaid from the contract that he either had with the Yankees or had with the Red Sox that they were trying to drop. So,
and it's interesting because the Red Sox then the next year traded all of their players that were making any money at all.
Yeah, which seems odd to me.
And Nick Punto.
Yeah. Who knows why he was involved in that trade? But what I see is the Red Sox moving over to more of a Moneyball stance. What can we get for less value? Which I don't quite understand. They did try and hire Billy Beane, but
Oh, I remember that.
At the same time, it's like the Red Sox have a lot of money. Why do they need to save all this money? So I'm kind of confused by that. I can understand hey, let's save money. Let's look at our rookies that we have in the system, and let's see what we can bring up. But I don't understand why the Red Sox would need that necessarily.
Yeah, and I know after that we were also talking about contracts and how older guys get more money even if they're not as good as younger guys just because they're old. And I wanted to pull this up earlier, but Ichiro is what, 40, 41, something like that?
Yeah,
and
I want to say 41.
And he's not good. Oh, he's 38, 39. Sorry, this number's right in front of me. He's 39.
Oh.
And he did not deserve the $6 million he got a year. $6.5 million a year. He played worse than half the players that were making the major league minimum.
Yeah.
But just because he's Ichiro, he gets money.
Was that the contract that we gave him, or that
the Yankees gave him?
The Yankees
gave him. They gave him a 2 or 3 year deal.
I understand us giving him that because he brought in half of the Mariners' yearly income from ticket sales and whatnot. So, but the Yankees, I don't understand why they would pay him that much, especially when they need to re-sign Cano. Well, they have plenty of money.
And speaking of the bringing in fans, Hyun-Jin Ryu has brought in so many Korean fans to the Dodgers. It's crazy.
I can imagine that. He has had an impressive season.
Yeah, he was one of those guys where he came over internationally and no one knew who he was. He was not a Tanaka. You know how Tanaka's going to be when he comes over here this offseason.
Yeah.
He wasn't like Iwakuma was when he came over his first year. It wasn't like or Aroldis Chapman or Jorge Soler or Yasiel Puig. It was just like, oh, cool, some international guy. Who's he? And he just he went out and he just very respectfully made people aware of his existence.
Yeah, he had some incredible stats. And, he's actually making me kind of concerned. The Cardinals have their 2 matchups that they have at home against the Dodgers. And they have Waka, who's played amazing recently.
I thought his name was Wacha until a week ago.
Yeah, it's one of those names that really could be pronounced anyways. And then Waka versus Kershaw, which is going to be an amazing matchup. And then you have Wainwright, and you're like, oh, well, Wainwright gets to start in Game 7. You know, that's one of those shoo-ins. But he's pitching against Rue, and it's like, maybe not, you know?
Yeah.
None of the offense. I'm very surprised. None of the offenses this offseason have been producing any sort of staggering numbers. You know, David Ortiz has I think one hit so far in the entire ALCS, and yes, it happens to be a grand slam, but still, one hit in 5 games is not very good. And then you look at the Cardinals, they took their 3-1 lead with their team batting under 200 as a team.
Yeah.
It's kind of some odd stats to see from off-season teams or postseason teams that are just, you know, supposed to be producing. But I guess it says a lot to the pitchers.
Yeah, interesting. But an interesting thing about Ryu is he's making $3 million this year, which makes sense for the lack of hype he got. But Carlos Marmol, it never ceases to amaze me how much he just himself. He's getting $10 million this year.
I don't understand that. There's such hype around pitchers that never produce.
Yeah, we talked about this last year, or not last year, last week. Why do relief pitchers get paid more than $2 million a year? Like $2 million a year sounds like the most a relief pitcher should get, because relief pitchers are so wishy-washy. They have a great year and a bad year, like
Definitely.
alternately, and you can't have such confidence in a pitcher you're willing to give him $10 million a year if he's a relief pitcher, because then you get Carlos Marmol.
Yeah, well, and I mean you get. Even scenarios like Grilly this year, you know, he was probably the best closer in baseball until he got injured. And then he comes back and he's just not what he was. He's not the Shark Tank anymore. He just doesn't quite have the stuff. So it's like, you know, where is it? But, you know, the guys who are paying him, who are writing the checks, clearly they see something in relief pitchers that we don't quite understand.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you're good, you can demand money is the thing. When you're good, you can demand money. Like, you know, I can understand if you want your team to have a good bullpen. A good bullpen isn't easy to come by, and so what you're gonna do is if a player demands money and you know there's a high demand for him, then someone's gonna be willing to pay him.
Right, and especially when you have the money to pay him. You know, you kind of have to make do with what you, or the other way around, not make do with what you have, but you kind of have to make it work.
Right, and it kind of amazes me is like Brandon League. He was not that great for the Mariners in his last year when we traded him. We were like, oh, I can't wait till Brandon League gets out of here so we can have a new closer because he was so unreliable. And then he goes to the Dodgers, and in the offseason they gave him 3 years and $15 million, and I'm like, wait, why? Why would you pay him $5 million a year when he's been so not reliable? Like, yeah. I would just let him go at that point. And didn't he get injured anyway?
I'm not quite sure how that turned out. You know, a lot of what I think it has to do is not just the talent, but the coaching, right? You see a lot of guys who come in and, you know, a team is convinced that they can get a guy and they like him and they're like, oh, well, we can coach him because the other team didn't have very good pitching coaching. And you're like, oh, well, our pitching coaching is better and it's going to be more prone towards this guy. And it's like, even if you take scenarios like that, oh, well, it's better pitching, oh, well, we have a better pitcher's ballpark, or all the scenarios like that, it's like, how do you pay him this exaggerated much? Where do you get the confidence to write a $15 million check in a guy who did nothing spectacular whatsoever?
Yeah, no, definitely. My favorite relief pitcher, besides Tyler Clippard because he's awesome. I just really like Tyler Clippard. I kind of like him for the same reason I like this guy, David Robertson of the Yankees. I hate the Yankees. I love David Robertson. He and Tyler Clippard, they're both so not. They have no hype around them. Most people don't even know who they are. Probably.
I think I've heard of both of them, but yeah, like you said, not very much hype.
And they're so consistent. They have a great season every year. They're the most consistent relief pitchers, besides Mariano Rivera and other acclaimed closers. That they're just consistent every year, and they have the same role. They're always a setup men because there's probably someone blocking them all the time. Like David Robertson had Mariano Rivera for so many years, and he's probably gonna be their closer next year. And who knows if he'll actually work out in that role there. But he goes by his business every year, and he does great. And I just respect that he isn't wishy washy like most pitchers are.
Right.
And relief pitchers, especially relief pitching prospects, especially are hard to gauge. I mean,
Definitely.
the Mariners thought they had a great system of relief pitching prospects, and then we had a bad bullpen, and they refused to call like any of them up just because.
I don't understand that. There's a lot of prospecting going on, especially in the Mariners system. I know we rely heavily on our prospecting system, with all the call-ups we have, like Zunino and stuff like that, and Nick Franklin, and, all the pitchers that we apparently always have, and, it seems like we always have something on the brink, but it's like, when it comes down time to pull these guys up, it never seems like the managing system is going to do it. They always leave these guys down, or they always pull them up one at a time, and they let one guy be a huge disappointment, and then they pull the next guy up, and then he's a huge disappointment. And I feel like if they pulled like 2 or 3 guys up at a time, and they said, hey, you 2 and 3 guys, you like get close, work together, figure out how this works, talk to each other and stuff like that, and then use the veterans that we have, because there's still a couple guys that are veterans that we'll leave around for them.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a lot better instead of one at a time. What happened with...
It's like a gauntlet, okay, who's next?
Yeah, it's like, who wants to face the gladiator in the cathedral in Rome first, and then you get them one at a time. It's like, that doesn't quite work. We pulled up Zunino and Kevin and Nick Franklin, fairly close together this year, and look how they've turned out. They're both developing consistently on a slower than you would not necessarily hope, but would be exciting. It would be great to see him like pop out their first year and be like amazing or something. But I mean, that's not realistic. But they're both developing consistently, which I like a lot. And they pulled him up around the same time frame, same year, and they let him develop together. And they're pulling some guys up now, and it's like, bring it on. Bring a couple more guys on board and let the flow continue, and see if we can build a team that's going to be almost like a family, where they're going to support off of each other, they're going to know each other, they're going to have been a team for a long time and stuff like that. Like you see a lot of smaller organizations doing, like the Indians. What's anybody done with the Indians in the past while? They brought up a couple of good pitchers. They brought up Masterson's been doing good, and they got a couple guys going, and they did really good this season. So let that happen.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the Mariners, I feel like they always call up guys at like the wrong times.
Definitely.
And they always, like Jack Zorencic always makes the excuse like, oh well, the kids need to get their feet wet. They need to have a couple of years to get acclimated. Well, other teams don't need those kids to have a couple of years. They call up prospects and they contribute right away. They don't hit 220 in their first 3 years and oh well, they'll be better next year. They just need a few years to develop. Like, well, at some point they should be developed, and that's what the minor leagues are for, is for developing.
Right.
And why do you have a minor league system if they need to get their feet wet in the majors before they can succeed? If they're not ready to succeed, don't call them up. And with the Mariners, I remember Mike Zunino was tearing the cover off the ball in April and May, and when he was in AAA, and he was hitting like 330, and he had like 8 or 9 home runs, and he was leading the PCL in homers. And then he just tanked. He got injured, then he came back, and he was awful. And or maybe he didn't get injured, he just came back and he was awful. And then they decided to call him up when he started to go on this awful streak. And it was kind of like, well, why'd you wait till now? Why didn't you call him up earlier when he was doing well?
Yeah, I don't understand scenarios like that. What else I don't understand is the trades of guys. Like, a lot of times you see, like we were talking about with the Red Sox, they traded away Euclid to get rid of some of the money problems that they were having. They were spending a lot of money on guys. And then they got, 2 farm guys. If apparently, I always hear this buzz about how the Mariners have one or two great pitching prospects, or a good hitting prospect like Zunino or Franklin or whatever, and it's like, why not trade off one of those guys for someone good that isn't, another prospect like the Mariners have been doing for the past 5 years, where they're trading prospects for prospects, and they're getting screwed out of the deal. Why not trade like one or two for a veteran who can support the team and give us some standing ground, something to work with? Because it seems like we have not had, that guy since Ichiro started dying out.
Yeah,
and we have Felix, but I feel like a starting pitcher can't really embrace that role. You need a guy that's going to be in the lineup every day.
Yeah, and here's the thing. So that's a great segue into what I want to talk about. So the Mariners are almost certainly going to throw buckets of money at Jacoby Ellsbury, and he's probably going to take it because it's buckets of money and because he lives close to the north. He's from Oregon, so he lives close to here, and he's probably going to want to finish his career here. He's 30 now, and the rumors are that the Mariners are going to offer him 7 years and $126 million, which would be $21 million a year.
That's a lot.
Yeah, but I actually would be okay with that. We're gonna have about $100 million. Oh well, not $100 million. We'll probably have about $80 million to spend this offseason, and $21 million of that going to Jacoby Ellsbury would be fine by me. Especially if you're gonna support him with other pieces, he would be an okay headliner for me, and I think that would be awesome. But in terms of trades, obviously. Trades might be another great way to go about it. David Price is going to be on the market.
Yes, definitely.
And I was thinking maybe the Mariners could throw together a package of, like, Nick Franklin, who is kind of an extra piece. He's good, but we don't need him. And, like, one of our prospects, like James Paxton. And then throw in maybe a middle relief or middle guy like a Stephen Romero outfielder or a Chris Taylor type of guy.
When does Price become a free agent?
That's a great question. I know that one of the things they were talking about with David Price is that he'd have to be willing to sign an extension with the Mariners, which to me probably means he is coming up pretty close. Yeah, I can't really find it. Oh, he agreed to a 1-year deal last offseason, I guess, which was arbitration. I'm guessing that he'd probably have to go through arbitration here, and that he wouldn't be a free agent right away because he's not a free agent this year.
He hits free agency the end of the 2015 season.
Okay, so we definitely have to sign him to an extension. And would he want to be here in Seattle? Do you think?
If we put Felix and Ellsbury in his face and say we have this
and Taijuan Walker.
Who?
Taijuan Walker.
Oh, yeah. I think that's an attractive deal, especially if we get Zarenzik out of it, and we get ourselves a good manager and GM already, because I'm tired of having terrible front office. So one thing I like about it is the Rays are very, very into trading away their veterans that get good to get new guys and filling their lineup with new guys that are cheap. Because, the Rays have no fan base and they make no money. So first of all, they need that, and they love that because it works for them really well. So the Rays would bite instantly at a deal like that.
Right. I don't know how much the Mariners would have to give up, though, because, you have to give talent to get talent, and I'm afraid that they would ask for Taijuan Walker, and I'm afraid the Mariners would take it because Jack Zarenzik knows this is his last year, and he's going to do anything he can to win this year, which is both good and bad. It's bad because, obviously, you don't want to sacrifice the future and ensure another, 100 lost seasons just for the sake of a winning season. But it's good in the sense that there might be a good product in the field next year because he's desperate. And that's the thing. David Price would be a good addition. A postseason rotation of Felix, Price, and Walker would be awesome.
That would be amazing.
That would be a great place to start. Of course, the lineup would need some bolstering. And I was just thinking about first base options, but I just read on MLB Trade Rumors that Jose Daniel Abreu just signed with the White Sox. Do you know who he is? Oh, Jose Dariel, sorry. He's a Cuban defector who's coming over this offseason.
I have not heard of him.
Apparently, he's pretty good. He's 26, and he just signed with the White Sox for 6 years and $68 million. So he's a big name guy.
Wow.
Um,
it's a lot of money for defecting from Cuba.
well, it's the same thing that happened with Yoenis Cespedes.
Yeah.
And Aroldis Chapman also. But yeah,
Puig
so
as well, right?
who?
Puig was a defector.
Who was?
Puig.
Puig, yes, but he was a minor league defector. He was younger. Cespedes was like 28 or something. He was ready, and Chapman wasn't too far away. But Chapman was supposed to be a starting pitcher. But regardless, what surprised me the most by this signing is that they're making news during the playoffs, which is like a complete cardinal sin.
Yeah.
Making big news during the playoffs.
Something tells me that there was a team that, someone spilled the beans about what was going on, and there was a team that had already grabbed him, and they, convinced him to come to them, and they, upped their deal by, $1 million a year, and said, sign now or let the deal drop, because they knew they were going to lose him somehow,
Right.
Like some team had probably offered him, 5 years, $50 million, and or 555, something like that, and the White Sox come in and they hear it, they find some rumor somewhere, and then and then they go, 6 years, 68, it's on the table for a week or whatever, consider it, and, because I feel like that would happen, that, especially for a team that looks at it and says, wait, maybe we don't want to spend 5 years, $55 million on a guy that is a defector. You can't be sure about those guys. And then they're like, okay, well, what are we going to do? They leak some sort of information through some guy that they know, and then they force the White Sox into a situation where they're signing a guy during the postseason and, for a ton of money.
Right. And so here's a comparison between this guy and Puig, by the way, because you were mentioning Puig. So Puig got 7 years and $42 million. Abreu just got 6 years and $68 million.
That's a big difference.
So he's getting about $12 million a year. And so I actually don't know about this guy's skill set much. I've just read his name a bunch on the Trade Rumors website because they just talk about him, and I was like, I'll probably learn more about him later. But I guess yeah. Apparently, earlier today it was leaked that it was down to the Astros, Red Sox, and White Sox. That would be interesting to see him on the Astros.
Yeah, definitely. Well, they put up $40 million in profit, so maybe they can afford it now.
Yeah, they said that he's an all-bat prospect, and he's apparently regarded as a slugger, so I'm guessing that means that he's, no good at fielding, but he's great batting, and he hits homers.
He's a guy who puts people in the seats, is what a lot of people are looking for.
Right, exactly. But,
which explains why the Astros would be so interested in him.
It's interesting. I always, at the end of the season, I was watching, they had Astros games on, and they, they're like, a season low, 11,000 fans. I'm like, why would 11,000 fans even show up to those games anymore?
Yeah, that's a good... So, the Astros surprised me as the team that fell down so far. Because they were good in the mid-2000s. Oh, excuse me. When I was really paying attention to the Cardinals and, all that they were doing, it seemed like the Astros were always right there in their division rivalry. They were always challenging the Cardinals and stuff like that. It wasn't the Pirates. It wasn't the Brewers until 08, 09, 2010 kind of time.
Right.
It was like 05, 06, 07. The Astros were good, and they had Berkman, and they had, a couple other guys that were solid all around. And it really surprised me that the Astros dropped off. So maybe their fan base has just stuck around and, labored through it. And their fan base was dropping off slower this year. And they're, looking to go out, take the $40 million that they made off of last year, and get some guy to put people back in the seats.
Yeah, it's encouraging that they're willing to spend that much money, to be honest. Um, but obviously didn't work out. Um, but yeah, the thing is, who would go to an Astros game on like a Monday night in September? Like the fact that even 11,000 people would raise their hands and be like, "I'll do it," is just surprising.
They must be selling some cheap seats.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I remember my mom used to tell stories about how she would go to every single Cub game because back then bleacher tickets were $1, and she and her friends would call the nurse's office and make up that they had random tropical diseases, as an excuse to go to the Cubs games instead of going to school.
That's awesome.
And apparently she went to like every single Cubs game in like multiple schooling years that she had. I wish seats were that cheap.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like
now it's like $25 to even get in the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, obviously technology's improved and ballpark facilities and all that have improved. But honestly, I would be okay with like taking a hit on technology just to see like a game. And that actually takes me back to something earlier. Did did you read or hear anything about the Howard Lincoln interview?
Howard Lincoln interview? No, I did not.
Do you know who Howard Lincoln is?
No.
Okay, Howard Lincoln is the big boss of the Mariners. He's the CEO. He's not
okay.
He's the guy the owners hired to be the big guy, the big dog. But the thing is that he obviously is not good for the team because he's old and he doesn't know anything about any of this fancy schmancy stuff. And he hired Jack Surincic, and he's the one that decided, oh, Jack Surincic should stay around another year. And he's been hated for Mariner fans for a long time.
Yeah, I can understand that. Now that I know who he is, I'm not particularly fond of him anymore.
Right, and
I never was.
Howard Lincoln and Chuck Armstrong are the two guys. Chuck Armstrong being the president.
I recognize Chuck Armstrong.
Yeah, and Howard Lincoln being the CEO. And Howard Lincoln gave an interview after the extension of Jack Surincic, and there's some quotes here that I want you to listen to. So he talked about how Eric Wedge resigned as the manager of the Mariners.
Right.
And so he said that Eric's moved on to greener pastures, and that didn't have to happen. So he basically up in front admitted that Eric Wedge moved on to a better place when he said greener pastures.
Right.
That he didn't have to go to a better team. He said.
Where did he go to?
I don't. He hasn't gone anywhere yet. He's a free agent. And then he said, "I think we've got an outstanding front office. Let's separate baseball out. All the other parts of the organization are running at full speed and doing a great job." And that's a direct quote from the CEO of the Mariners saying, "If you don't worry about the baseball aspect of the front office, we're doing pretty good. I mean, the baseball operations kind of suck, but at least at least they're getting fed and all the employees are coming to work on time."
Yeah, my dad works for Boeing, and that's like him coming home every day and saying, we're not selling airplanes, but we're being really convincing at, we're making it hard for people to say no. It's like they're still saying no. We're still losing games. You're not doing your job if we're still losing games.
Yeah, this guy makes me crazy. Here's another one. So here's the question that was asked of him. There's a phrase that's thrown around a lot. Public trust. In terms of what a pro sports franchise is doing. Do you believe you have the public trust? Do you believe it's been diminished at all? And he said, let's go back to 1992. I think if fans will step back, they kept it here so that we could enjoy Major League Baseball, forgetting about the losses for just a moment. So he's saying, hey guys, be thankful you have a team. They suck, but be thankful you still have it. And to like
when was he hired as the CEO?
Oh my years I think it might have been when the franchise started, or no, it was when the new ownership group stepped in and they hired him,
which was
92. So he saved the team basically, but then he stopped doing anything after that.
Yeah, I really don't like that guy now. I mean, Be thankful you have a team. It's like, no, be thankful you have a job. Because, maybe we will, as fans, stop coming to the game because you're terrible. The owners will lose interest because they're not making any more money anymore because you're terrible and thus the team is terrible. And then you won't have a job because he will relocate the team. No, be thankful that the team is here because you're the one who's getting paid for it, not people who are paying to go to the games. It's like,
well, to be fair,
that's the ultimate hypocrisy.
To be fair, no one is keeping him accountable because, I mean, the guy that was the owner of the team that didn't even care about the team just died, which that sucks. It's a shame. He actually kind of saved the team, but he didn't keep him accountable, and neither is Nintendo of America. They don't care. They've got their own business. They run Nintendo. They've got games to make, and so they're not going to keep the baseball guy accountable for whether the team is good. And so basically, he's a free bird. He can do whatever he does, whatever he wants to do, and the team, and he'll still be there. It kind of sucks. Here's the biggest thing. The number one quote from him that made me the most angry. So he got asked, "How do you sell this team to fans? If two fans were standing right here now and asked, why should we spend our money to go and see your product, what would you tell them?" And his response was, "First, I'd tell them that when you go to Safeco Field, you are going to have a safe, friendly environment. You're going to be sitting in a first-class ballpark. You are going to get a great entertainment. It's a great place to come, whether it's at the Pen or at Eggers or wherever. So there's a lot of things going on Safeco Field for the fans to enjoy, besides watching Major League Baseball. And I would point that out to them. Many of our fans are thinking about things other than what's on the field, so we have to provide a really good entertainment experience across the board as well as getting that Major League team to perform."
Oh my god. It's like, see, there's so much wrong with that, except I come back to a key point, and that's if people wanted to go to a nice restaurant, they'd go to a nice restaurant, not the restaurant at Safeco Field. If people wanted to go to a park and they wanted to go on a slide, they'd go to the park that's a block away from their house.
That's free.
That's free that they can walk to and not spend $20 on, not just tickets, but parking, right? People, if you don't want to walk a mile, you're spending at least $10.
And also, when you go to the park, you're basically sacrificing your whole day, Saturday, where
it's serious plans, and it's like, I'm sorry, but no, it doesn't have anything to do with the other stuff. The other stuff is just, oh, hey, that's convenient. Let's have that. That's what you do after you have the good baseball team.
Right, and that's not the. Also, he's basically saying that he directs the franchise towards the casual fans, the people that come to like a game or two a year because it's a fun experience to try out every now and again. Not those fans that are dedicated that come to the game to watch their team play. And I'm sure that I don't know what the fallout from this was, but I'm sure that when the players heard that he doesn't care about the team being good and he wants the fans to focus on things other than the team. Like, that would make me pretty angry if I was a player, like, oh yeah, we make this ballpark so that fans don't pay attention to you.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's like, what was I going to say? It's like if you put, an ice show on a rink next to a hockey game.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what are you trying to sell here? Are you trying to sell a hockey game, or are you trying to sell people doing fancy flips on skates? Like, that's completely ridiculous. I mean, and another thing is like, you look at the Yankees' success, right? The Yankees did it by building a fan base that wants to go to every single game, right? You see in movies all the time, there are kids who aspire to go to Yankees games because they want to watch the Yankees play at Yankee Stadium and things like that. And you're trying to sell that when we, can sell the tickets. So it's like, first you need to build that base where it's like people want to go to the Mariners game to see the Mariners play because, that's some special treat, not just, oh, I'm gonna casually go to the Mariners game when it's $30 a seat.
Yeah, and to me, like this kind of draws back to I don't get why King Felix wants to stay here, and I love him. I
Oh
love that
yeah,
he wants to stay here. I'm not complaining, but if I were him, I would not love Seattle as much as he does. Well, I mean, Seattle itself is great. I would not love the Mariners as much as he does because especially after the CEO comes out and says something like that, why does he have trust in the team?
yeah. I don't quite understand that. He also has so many options. People could pay him so much money. Well, we paid him a lot of money, but you know, we pay him a lot of money. He loses a lot. He doesn't look very good because of his record. He's, you know, the one thing though is he's got that Felix zone, whatever sections like 118 over
Oh,
there,
the
where all the
the
people
King's
have the
Court.
signs. I think he's got a pretty big ego because of that, and he's like, I have 3 sections that wear my shirt every single time I pitch. I think if I were a professional athlete, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you see him give interviews, he doesn't seem like that kind of a big ego guy, which I also like. But obviously, if you're a sports athlete, it's hard not to be. Um, but if I were him, I'd want to go to a team that respected me more.
What was that?
If I were him, I'd want to go team to that respected me more and that
Yeah,
had a more
and a team that needs an ace, right?
yeah
What team
like
could use an ace? The Reds could use a solid
oh
ace like
yeah, they would be
Felix.
so good with Felix.
Um, the Giants, kind of, because their
They
aces
have
are falling
Kane,
off the table. Yeah,
but
he's getting a little old. Um,
is he?
well, he's one of those aces that's not like the dominant he used to be, kind of deal. Um, uh, going through each
No,
each division.
who yeah, it's kind of like he could go pretty much anywhere else and he would probably have a good chance to win the World Series, but instead he signs a contract that essentially makes him a Mariner for like the rest of his life.
Yeah,
And
and the Mariners are not going to trade him.
no, well, of course not, unless they get a new GM who's willing to trade him. And I'm kind of neutral on the whole trading Felix thing. I used to be in support of it, then I used to not be, and then I used to be again, and now I'm just kind of in the middle. Um, I think there's good and bad to possibly trading Felix. The one thing is that he's consistent. He's going to
He's
give
one of
you
the most consistent starting pitchers in baseball.
yeah, and he's going to be good every year. And so if you traded him, you'd be trading away. You'd be punting ultimately one game every single start until you get someone better. But think of the return for him though.
Yeah, that's why I agree that I'm neutral, is because, if we get something good out of him, to me it looks like a prospect and, a middle of the line, not quite a veteran, but a guy who's proven himself, who's a solid player, who gets the job done, and I'm thinking of like
Alan Craig.
an offensive guy. What?
Alan Craig.
Alan Craig.
Like an Alan Craig.
Oh, yes, like an Alan Craig. And then, like a pitching prospect as well.
Right.
Deal.
And that would be
a solid deal.
That would be great. And, it would be awesome for the Mariners to do that kind of thing. But then it also goes back to how do you know those guys are going to succeed?
Right.
All that kind of thing. And we could ask for the moon. And I don't understand why they're like, nope, we're not even listening on offers. Like, I think you should listen to an offer on anything.
Yes.
Like,
I don't understand that. Like, the Detroit Tigers should listen to offers on Miguel Cabrera. And, that's not just me exaggerating or anything. It's like, what if some team goes out there and really wants Miguel Cabrera, and they decide that Miguel Cabrera is the best thing for their baseball team in the long run, which it very well could be to a couple teams. And for the Tigers, who have Prince Fielder, they have Anibal Sanchez, they have Justin Verlander, they have Max Scherzer, they have Austin Jackson, they have a lot of players and a lot of talent. They don't necessarily need Miguel Cabrera as much as other people do.
right.
So it's like, even Miguel Cabrera should listen to offers on him because there's upsides that a trade for Miguel Cabrera could bring to any team.
Yeah, to me, the only player and the only team for which I would say nope, not even listening, is Mike Trout, and that's because he does literally everything on a baseball field, and he's 22 years old. There's nothing you could offer me that would make me want to give you Mike Trout if I was the Angels.
I have to agree with that, and it's not necessarily because of Mike Trout for me. I mean, he is that 5-tool player. He does do everything, and that's part of it. But it's also because he's, like we talked about with Felix, he's extremely consistent, and I don't think. And it's not necessarily because he's that good. I don't think that there's anybody else good enough to make an offer. That nobody's going to offer their version of Mike Trout plus a starting pitcher kind of deal, right? The Washington Nationals aren't going to offer,
Bryce Harper and Gio Gonzalez.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
So Mike Trout is the only guy that you don't listen to offers on because there's nothing legitimate and there's nothing that the Angels could use for him.
Right.
They have that starting pitching that could be so good, but it's just not quite on all the time. And they have that offensive lineup with Hamilton and Pujols that could be so amazing, and it's just not quite on. So Mike Trout is just what's holding them together.
Yeah, and on that Bryce Harper note, I kind of think the same thing about Bryce Harper, that the only people you can trade for Bryce Harper and Mike Trout would be each other. And I think if I was the Nationals, I probably wouldn't listen to much on Bryce Harper either.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that.
Because I just, young, like, Harper's 21, young guys that are proven already, like, you'd be asking for prospects that are likely older than he is at that point. And if you're asking for anyone younger than him, then they're almost certainly not going to be good enough to be considered a sure thing. And so whatever you get in return for Bryce Harper or Mike Trout is almost certainly going to be a downgrade, either based on their age or their ability.
Unless you get numbers.
What do you mean?
Unless you get, like, a starting pitcher who is starting to... Unless you got, like, Justin Masterson kind of guy, plus, their best hitting prospect that they have. But nobody's going to trade numbers like that.
No, of course not. And then once you get to that point of where you're trading a bunch of guys, it's like, then becomes the money situation.
Right.
It's can you take on that much money? So you can't find the balance between how much money you're going to take and how much ability you want. You can't really find that balance in the middle where it's like the perfect amount of money to take and the perfect ability to get in return. And that's another thing that bothers me about baseball is that it's such a money game also.
It is. It's all about making money.
The draft especially has become such a, like, the draft is meant for the worst teams to get the best players in the best order. But the players know that if they demand a certain amount of money, they can get pushed to better teams.
Right.
And so it becomes less about a straight draft of ability and more about strategizing how much money you can spend without going over the cap limit.
Which is exactly why they need to go back to the exact same way that the NFL and the NBA do it.
Which is what?
That's their... I think it's actually a 1 year...
Oh, isn't it assigned money?
What?
Isn't it like assigned money? Like you draft him and that's what you pay him?
Yeah.
Like, like if the first pick is like $6 million, you pay him $6 million, no more, no less. It's just agreed upon it once you draft him.
Yeah, I believe it's... the NFL...
Isn't it per pick and not per player also? So, like, not necessarily Anthony Bennett was $6 million, but the number one pick was $6 million?
Yeah, but it wasn't $6 million. I mean, that's
right,
a lot.
But yeah.
But yeah, I think the NBA does that, and then I'm pretty sure that the NFL does... if you don't sign with the team that drafted you, you get... you don't get to play for a year or something like that.
Oh, really?
So it's like you're losing money that way.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So hold on, Bennett $5.3 million. It's almost $6 million.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I was.
He was the number one pick, right?
Yeah, that was surprising to me.
Yeah, I remember that.
The Huskies almost had him, right? The Washington Huskies. We were in his top 4 schools. It was us, Oregon, UNLV, and I think Kentucky. and he eliminated us, and then it was between UNLV, Oregon, Kentucky, and everyone was like, oh, he's taking Kentucky, and then he took Oregon. Or, sorry, no, he took UNLV. But we were in
didn't he take Kentucky?
the reason other players don't pick Kentucky because they wouldn't get any playing time.
Oh, yeah.
And so he took UNLV, and we were in his top 4, and the same thing happened, like, Aaron Gordon, we were also in his top 4, and Jabari Bird, and, like, all these great players that, like, have us in the top 5 and don't pick them. I say us, even though I'm not going to UW under any circumstances, but...
Why not?
I don't want to go to a school that's so close, and they don't have a good broadcasting program.
Yeah, I can understand the close thing.
The only in-state school I'm applying to is Wazoo, and that's because they have an outstanding broadcasting program. That's the only one I'm applying to. And I know I'll get in because, yeah.
Where else are you applying?
University of North Carolina, Syracuse University, Northwestern University in Illinois.
Those some prestigious sports schools.
Yeah, they're all Division I. University of Arizona, Marquette University, Hofstra University, which is in New York, and I think there's a couple of others that I'm forgetting. But yeah, one of my prerequisites to going to college is it has to be a Division I sports school.
Oh yeah.
Because first of all, I love big schools because people, and I get to socialize with a lot of people. Also, I want a big sports environment to be a part of, and I also need a school that has good broadcasting and journalism programs, and those all have good. University of Michigan's another one.
Alright. Yeah, those are. Yeah, I would never go to a school that does not have a good sports program. I'm considering going to a junior college to play either baseball or golf for a year, but
yeah.
I actually feel like I'm taking the loss going to CSU because I mean they were good in basketball this year, but that's because they had their starting 5 was all seniors. And then, football, they're 2-4 right now. They've lost some pretty mediocre games.
But the thing about going to like another state schools, it's so expensive. So I'll probably end up going to Wazoo anyway, unless I get a lot of scholarship money.
Oh yeah.
Because that's one of the reasons I went to the financial aid thing for the seniors yesterday, and I'm definitely going to apply for all that stuff because otherwise I'm going to Wazoo, flat out.
That's actually, I think, is one of the brightest points of college sports now is the scholarships. You give people who aren't going to go pro, who don't really have a chance to become anything serious in their sport, to get an amazing education and doing something they love at the same time. Like Darian, for instance,
going to Penn and getting an Ivy scholar,
getting an Ivy League education.
Yep.
He's playing basketball for 4 years. And let's be honest, Darian is
he's not half bad.
He's not half bad, but he's not good enough to make a name out of himself as far as professional or any otherwise. He's a big, thick guy. He's not very fast. His hands aren't great, but he's 6'10".
Yeah.
Let the guy play basketball. Let the guy do a good job. And you know what? I've been following him.
He got doubles. He got a bunch of double. Didn't he? He led their team in rebounds, didn't he?
He rebounds per game.
Yeah, he led them in rebounds.
In the first 8 games or something.
Right, and they're like, oh, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah. So his haircut is hilarious, though. It's like this odd comb over. He clearly goes to an Ivy League school kind of haircut.
Oh yeah.
But then so he was a freshman last year, and then they have another guy who's a shooting guard who is he's from Africa.
Oh wow.
And he was like, it was crazy. The guy was apparently really good at basketball and really intelligent too. So they were like, hey, come over here because a lot of recruiting doesn't happen very much in Africa and stuff like that because you can't really trust it. But they knew he was a smart. They knew he was a smart kid, so they brought him over. And so Darian and the shooting guard are going to go to school for 4 years together, and Penn might be able to make a run at possibly a big dance ticket in a couple of years.
That'd be pretty cool, actually. To see big screen. It's kind of fun to go all fanboy on people that you used to know.
I watched a couple of games of his because he played. Who is it? It was NBC Sports.
Oh yeah, and they're playing against some.
They played 2 games on NBC Sports, and I watched them, and it was exciting. It was like I played on the same basketball court as that kid. My sophomore year of high school.
And it's kind of the same thing about Theo, as I was following Theo stats, because when I'd make my rounds about looking at the minor leagues, I'd sometimes be like, oh hey, so I know that guy, what's he up to? And I want to pull up his stats, just so I can inform the audience about Theo's endeavors.
Very well.
Actually, no, last year he didn't, or 2 years ago, he didn't do very well. His first year he didn't do very well. His line was 237 batting average, 283 on base percentage, so he's not walking. He wasn't walking a lot, and 247 slugging. So his slugging was less than his on base. He didn't have a lot of power. OPS of 530. Come this year, also in the same league, he hit 550 or 253. So a little bit better, but his OPS was 910 because he started walking a lot more. He actually struck out 1 less time and walked 10 more times than the year before.
That's very good.
And he hit 5 home runs versus 0 and had 5 doubles versus 1 and a triple even. So his OPS was 910. So he will probably be getting promoted to either whatever their short season league, like where the Aqua Sox are, next year. I don't think they're in the same league though, so I don't think we'd ever see him in Everett. But
that would have been special. That'd be really cool.
I remember, I think he put in the yearbook or something that he wanted to be drafted by the Mariners, and that would have been very interesting. But the Mariners don't like drafting in the state of Washington. Have you noticed that?
I have not, but I don't understand that. Is it just like
the Rays? For some reason, the Rays have really good scouts in the state of Washington, and they have been gutting our system of high school athletes. I know Theo went to the Dodgers, but guys like Josh Solly and Drew Vedelson and guys like that who grew up in Seattle have been going to the Rays.
Huh. That's interesting. I mean, the Rays, they invest everything they have in scouting and getting cheap players, so it makes sense that they would have a good farm system.
I wonder if it's because, do you remember how in 1992 when the Mariners were going to move, they were going to move to Tampa Bay? I wonder if it's like an alternate universe where like the Rays are like taking all the good players from Seattle because it's like a crossover of dimensions and they're supposed to be here.
That would be funny.
I mean, if you want to get all philosophical about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm about done if you're about done here.
Yeah, this is a great conversation, covered a lot of stuff about baseball, and hopefully we can have a conversation when the World Series is decided.
Yeah, we can do a couple more podcasts for sure. Whenever you're ready, just hit me up. All right, thanks for listening, guys. See ya.
See you guys.